All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. We live in some extremely heavy and prophetic times. All right, there's no denying that. End times intensifying, the prophetic shift that you cannot ignore. All right, so let's get into that. Again, times are extremely heavy, right? Prophecy is speaking, and this is why you must remain occupied in prophecy, right? This is the book of Sirach 39:1. And it reads, it says, but he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient and be occupied in prophecies, right? So prophecy is what's happening, man. All right. Again, extremely heavy prophetic times that we live in. All right. And these signs, these shifts that are going on in the earth pertaining to prophecy, you can't ignore it. All right. So let's get into it, Lord willing. This live lesson is edifying, man. All right. I saw this a little bit earlier. All right, just kind of opening up with this. So this is from CNN.com, came out today, March 3rd. It says, in pictures, March blood moon illuminates the sky. Okay. And we'll read a little bit here. It says a total lunar eclipse or blood moon made the satellite glow red on Tuesday across Asia, Australia, the Pacific, and the Americas. Often referred to as a blood moon, the event occurs when Earth moves directly between the sun and the moon casting a shadow on the satellite surface and causing it to appear crimson. It says, Salakia. Between the sun and moon. Salakia, hold on. Right. Reading it again, it says, often referred as a blood moon. The event occurs when Earth moves directly between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow on the satellite surface and causing it to appear crimson. This eclipse was the last of 3 consecutive total lunar eclipses. The first occurred in March 2025, and the second took place in September 2025. It says you can look at some images from the latest eclipse in this gallery, but don't hold your breath for the next one. It won't occur until December 31st, 2028, man. So again, it's just identifying the times, man. All right. Again, you can't ignore this shift that's happening. All right. In 2026, as we've been saying, all right, this could be the year to bring it all to an end. And Lord willing, that happens. All right. But again, the Lord has given us the signs, okay, the tokens, right? Let me get that real quick. Okay. This is 2 Ezra 6:20, which reads, it says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away, all right. And when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then I will show these tokens. The books shall be open. All right. Going into what? The prophecies. All right. The book shall be open before the firmament, and they shall see all together, right? So everybody's watching the prophets, the teachers, okay? The main focus is now the end times. Everybody sees it. As a matter of fact, we'll get into this a little bit. I can't really go into the article, but the title, it caught my eye. But how do we know? Let me pull it up real fast. Okay. This is from Wired.com. It says why missile alerts and war updates trigger doom scrolling. It says a combination of war alerts, breaking news updates, and algorithmic, how you say the word? Algorithmic feeds are trapping users in a threat monitoring loop. All right. So people are bugging out, man. All right. You go over TikTok, Instagram, whatever, any social media platform, everybody's talking about the instability that's going on in the Middle East, the wars, Iran, the bombings, Israel getting hit, Iran getting hit. Okay, American military bases are being hit. All right, and it's scaring the shit out of people, man. Okay, but people are watching, man. People are paying attention to what the prophets have to say. All right. So again, you can't ignore it, right? Let's go back. Read that again. Excuse me. All right, 2nd Ezra 6:20, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then I will show these tokens. The book shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together, right? And the word tokens, let's pull that up too. Okay. The definition of tokens, it says something serving as an indication, proof, or expression of something else, a sign, okay? Something that signifies or evidences authority, validity, or identity, okay? It says a specific instance of a phenomenon or a class of things as of a linguistic feature in a person's in a sample of a person's speech that can be isolated for study or analysis, right? So the point is that the Lord has given us the signs, the tokens, man. All right. Remember, you got this blood moon that's going on. All right. You had a few days ago, you had the planets align in the heavens. All right. So if these are not signs and tokens, I don't know what to tell you, man. All right. The Lord is speaking to us, man, showing us that we don't have a lot of time left on this earth. All right. And like I said, 2026, as we're seeing it, could bring the end of everything, man. Just to remind you. All right. The average empire survives for 250 years is America at death's door. All right. Because remember, the so-called anniversary or birthday of America or whatnot is supposed to be this July, this summer of 2026. So look what's happening now. All right. We haven't even made it to the Passover yet, and things are already popping, man. So as we know, as time goes on, it's going to get extremely worse. It's going to get heavier, man. So you got to be prepared in the spirit, right? But again, these are the signs, right? Joel chapter 2 and verse 30, right? Joel chapter 2, verse 30, and it reads, the day of the Lord, right? The day of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Joel 2 and 30, it says, and I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. Verse 31, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai come. All right. So again, we've been seeing these blood moons, every year or so. All right, the different signs in the heavens. All right. And these are the indicators that show us that the Lord is on his way. All right. Before the great and terrible day of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, man, the judgment. Okay. Joel 2 and 32, it says, and it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance. All right. As the Lord have said, and in the remnant whom the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai shall call. All right. So salvation starts with the nation of Israel. All right. First and foremost with the elect. Okay. That's who salvation is for. And the elect, those that are tapped in the spirit, and we're watching all these global events take place, man. All right. Again, with that transition. Okay. You can't ignore that prophetic shift that we see, man. All right. Things are extremely heavy. All right. Luke 21. And I want to start at verse 9. And it reads, it says, but when you shall hear of wars and commotions, what are we seeing all across the Middle East right now? Okay, wars, commotions, bombings. Okay, the people running in shelters and, buildings exploding. All right, cities getting hit, bases getting hit. All right, But when you should hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass. But the end is not by and by. Then he said unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So yeah, again, the what's happening in the so-called Middle East, and also what's happening over here in America. All right. You got the breakdown of the system, this government, the people are standing up. Okay, the whole ICE, situation. Okay, people getting rounded up. All right, how this very government is getting ready to come down upon its own people. Excuse me. So this is all tied into that. And he said unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And it says, in great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. All right. So yeah, the blood moons, the planetary alignments. Okay, these are those heavy signs that the Lord is speaking to us through. All right, that determine the end of this world in his second coming. All right, this is how we know. Okay, 2 Ezra 15. All right, we'll read down to it. All right, the point is in verse 12, I want to say, but this is 2 Ezra 15. All right, 2 Ezra 15:1, it says, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, right? Which I will put in thy mouth, said the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. And we see that, man. All right. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. All right. So right now, especially at this point in time, man, the mocking, the scoffing, the incredulity, all right, that doesn't hold any type of weight, man. All right. At this point, if niggas are still scoffing and talking shit, hey, just let them have it. All right, because verse 4 says what? For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. And that's it, man. All right, we're at the point now where, honestly, we never really cared about whether you believed or not. All right, but at this point, if you can't see it, then the Lord set you up to be blinded. All right, and he wants you to perish here, man. Okay, all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Verse 5, behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. And this is why the Lord is working now. All right. This is why, as you see, these are the beginning stages of nuclear war, World War III, that are breaking out in the so-called Middle East. This is why things is amping up. The prophecies are intensifying. Okay. Because the hurtful works have been fulfilled. All right. Verse 7, therefore said the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually, man. And that's us, man. All right. We're the ones that's complaining and crying out for all the wickedness that's being done in the midst thereof, man. Crying out for true justice, crying out for the Lord to return and to save us, man, and to redeem us out of this captivity, right? Verse 9, and therefore saith the Lord, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. And this is what's coming to spiritual Egypt, America. Okay, the plagues. All right, the famine, death. Okay, the food shortages, the civil unrest, Egyptian versus Egyptian, the breakdown of the society, everything that's all tied into the plagues. Verse 12, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. The point, verse 13, it says, they that till the ground shall mourn, for their seed shall fail through the blasting in hell and with fearful constellation. All right, again, the constellations that the Lord is showing us, right? And I was just looking that up. All right, fearful constellation. Okay. 2 Ezra 15:13. What does fearful constellation mean? The phrase fearful constellation refers to terrifying or ominous signs in the heavens, especially involving the stars, planets, or celestial events. In ancient times, unusual astronomical events were often understood as signs of divine judgment. Okay, so again, the blood moon, right? You got you had a few days ago, you had the planetary alignments. And what do these mean? Divine judgment is coming. All right. Let's read some more. All right. These are those astronomical events. Okay. Were often understood as signs of divine judgment. Right. Key ideas behind the phrase constellation. In biblical era language, constellation meant a grouping of stars, planetary alignments, comets, or unusual celestial appearances. It says fearful, right? Bear with me. Salakia. Computer moving a little slow. So hold on one second. All right, there we go. So it says fearful means dreadful, alarming, or foreboding, something that inspires fear. Okay. It says in apocalyptic literature like Second Esdras, cosmic disturbances symbolize divine judgment, political upheaval, right? Natural disasters, the collapse of order. Right now, that's heavy. Was it Second Esdras 9? Because as we're reading there, this is exactly what's going on in America, really all around the world. Okay. Was it Second Esdras 9? Okay. Second Esdras 9:1, and it reads, it says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Again, all right, the signs. How do you measure the time? How do you measure the times diligently within itself? By paying attention to what's going on in the world and tying it back to the scriptures, man. All right, this is how we know that Yahweh Shai is close, man. Our salvation is nearer than we believe, man. It says, verse 3, therefore, when there should be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then should thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things. Spake of those days. Slakia. Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. Verse 5, for like as all that is made in the world have a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest, right? And this is the point. As we see everything concerning prophecy intensify, right? Verse 6, even so the times also of the highest have plain beginnings and wonder and powerful works and endings and effects and signs. Again, the signs, the tokens, all right? Same thing, okay? The fearful constellation, right? Is there any more? Okay. So it says symbolic meaning. Most scholars understand fearful constellation symbolically rather than astronomically. It represents a time of chaos in both heaven and earth, the sense that creation itself is shaken, God's intervention in history. It says in ancient thought, heaven and earth were deeply connected, so disturbances in the sky meant something major was happening on earth. Woo, man. Beautiful. All right. So I do want to I do want to get into this as well, right? Because I was thinking about the fact of this bombing of Iran and the Epstein files and how they needed a distraction to cover these things up, and that's exactly what it is. And I want to get into a couple of videos here, right? But like I was making the point earlier, okay, people are doom scrolling, people are panicking. All right, I saw a couple of videos earlier of these Americans, young Americans being drafted into this war and getting ready to be shipped out and all of this stuff. And it's fucked up because it's like, these people are not going to come back. All right. You showed that they were showing videos of the parents crying and shit like that. All right. But this is the time we in, man. Mass death. Okay. Destruction. You see that? People are going to lose it, man. And we just in the beginning, man. All right. The doom scrolling. All right. People are trapped up in these feeds. All right. Because people know that this is going to lead to the war of Armageddon. All right. But anyway, let's get into this real quick. And we'll grab some scriptures, a couple of videos here.
The thing is, he's not really wrong.
Some Iranians that did not understand why their parents and grandparents were anti-American. Those Iranians will take over. Now they understand why American government is an imperialist, vicious government and a government that attacks other countries and kills little children. They understand they're fighting the Epstein class that either rape little girls or bomb little girls.
You see, this professor was making a point about the fact that younger Iranian people have a different understanding of America than their parents or grandparents. Because this conflict between the US and Iran all started in 1953 when Iran had a democratically elected prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh. He did something that was common sense, but of course was radical to the colonizers. He nationalized Iran's oil so Iranians could profit from their own resources instead of it getting continued to be exploited by Great Britain. Great Britain had controlled Iran's oil for decades through the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, what later became known as BP Oil. When Mossadegh cut the British off, Britain immediately ran to the US for help. In 1953, the CIA then went undercover, organized and financed Operation Ajax, which was specifically to overthrow Mossadegh. CIA agents posed as communists and threatened religious leaders, and the US ambassador also lied to the Iranian prime minister about alleged attacks on American nationals. Because of the CIA-supported street protests, some 300 Iranian civilians died in the streets of Tehran. The Shah quickly returned to take power, and as thanks for American help, signed over 40% of Iran's oil field to US companies. That same US-backed Shah then ruled as a dictator for the next 25 years, and he also created what was called the Savak, which was his secret police, which killed and imprisoned political protesters around Iran. The crazy part about it is that the US also trained that secret police. The US also armed the Shah by pouring billions of dollars in weapons, and Iranians lived under the US-backed Shah dictatorship for over 26 years between 1953 and 1979. When the Iranian people finally had enough, revolution erupted, and chants of death to America and death to England drew directly on the memory of 1953. This is the part that American media always skips and intentionally rewrites. The revolution wasn't random religious fanaticism. The Iranian Revolution was the inevitable consequence of 26 years of US-backed dictatorship rule. Memories of the US intervention in 1953 intensified the anti-American character of the revolution in the minds of many Iranians. And after the revolution, their new supreme leader came to power, and the US immediately lost its grip on Iranian oil. But by that time in 1980, Iran was weak. The revolution had dismantled the military, and the Iran-Iraq war was just now beginning with the Iraq invasion of Iran in September 22nd, 1980. The United States didn't give a fuck about Iran, but provided them with billions of dollars in economic aid, dual-use technology, intelligence sharing, and special operations training. The goal was only to regain access to Iran's oil by supporting Iraq, who we didn't give a fuck about either. America just jumped on the bandwagon to capitalize on an already weak Iran that was now entering another war. To make matters worse, on July 3rd, 1988, an Iranian civilian passenger plane from Tehran to Dubai was shot down by the US. All 290 Iranian civilians on board were killed, and the US never formally apologized, and as a matter of fact, the officer in command was later even given a fucking medal. The pattern is clear. In 1953, the US overthrows Iran's democracy for oil. For 26 years after that, the US then funds Iran's dictator and his secret police who represses the Iranian people. In 1979, the Iranian people finally have enough, revolt to take their country back, which the US doesn't like. In 1980 to 1988, the US then funds Iran's enemy to overthrow Iran again. In 1988, we shoot down their civilian plane, never apologize, and actually award the general who did it with a fucking medal. And in 2020, Trump orders a drone strike, assassinates Iran's most celebrated military general Soleimani, which the UN rules as unlawful, and then when Iran retaliates, they were immediately called terrorists. Fast forward to 2026, when Trump assassinates their literal supreme leader, high-ranking military officials, and hundreds of their civilians, and yet they're still the bad guys? Mind you, Trump told ABC News that the US had already picked who would replace Iran's government, but they died in the strikes too, saying, quote, the attack was so successful, it knocked out most of the candidates. They're all dead. None of this is self-defense, and all of this was regime change. It's the same shit that they did in 1953, just with bigger bombs. And of course, American media plays Iranian people in the streets, chanting death to America on loop to propagandize and justify America for attacking Iran more. That's what the fuck is happening.
Hey, so hey, now you see why we call this man the devil. All right. Real quick before we go to the next video. All right. This is why these things are happening. But again, we live in the era of truth. You know, things are being exposed and brought to light. And it's, again, this man, he can't hide, you know. It's Micah 2:1. Woe to the oppressors, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. All right. Esau has the power. All right. Verse 2. And they covet fields and take them by violence. Look what he did to Nigeria, Venezuela. Look what's going on in Iran. Look what they did to Iraq. Pretty much the bulk of the Middle East, man. All right. To take resources. All right, to establish the central banks, you know, to rape, rob, and murder, pillage. Okay, and they covet fields and take them by violence and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. And this is what he does. All right, Habakkuk 2:5. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. Who enlargeth his desire is hell and is his death, and cannot be satisfied. All right, this man wants the whole earth. All right, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people, man. So this is the devil. All right, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. All right. Anyway, let's get into this real quick. All right, and we'll make the point and we'll wrap this up. All right. But again, these things that are happening, all right, these Epstein files, man, they needed a distraction. So this was all about. Let's get into it here, make a couple points, and that'll be it. All right. This is from MS Now. Trump's attack on Iran won't make the Epstein files go away. GOP Representative Massey says.
Yesterday, Republican Congressman Thomas Massey tweeted, bombing a country on the other side of the globe won't make the Epstein files go away any more than the Dow going above 50,000 will. Today, the House Oversight Committee released video of the depositions of President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who had a suggestion for the committee about Donald Trump.
I think that it would be in keeping with the scope of the investigation of this committee to set up a deposition with President Trump. I know he's been deposed many, many, many times. He's taken the Fifth Amendment many, many hundreds of times. So I'm not saying you're going to get a lot of information. But given what's in the files and given past and prior conduct, he would be on my witness list.
You, just you.
Bear with me.
Hillary Clinton worked on the congressional committee investigating Republican President Richard Nixon for his criminality, which eventually forced Nixon to resign the presidency. And so she knows how these kind of investigative hearings are supposed to be conducted and how to assemble a witness list for such investigations. Bill Clinton might be the first witness who has testified to the committee about what Donald Trump told him about Jeffrey Epstein.
The president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein either. He just didn't. He just said we were friends. And then we had a falling out over a land deal, property deal.
Could I ask very briefly, Mr. President,
Sure.
if you recall, what were the circumstances of that conversation? Or at least let's start with, when did the conversation occur?
It was on his golf course. And there were a couple of years there when Joe Torre, who had been the manager of the Yankees and was a friend, and had a tournament, a charity golf tournament called appropriately for this investigation, the Safe at Home Foundation. And it was designed to combat domestic violence, of which Joe Torre had been a victim as a child. And so I wanted to support it. And so Donald Trump gave him the golf course in New York to have a tournament on, and I played in it a couple of times. And the day I was there, he would typically, Donald Trump would come out and play a few holes with us.
Hey, these devils are always fucking lying, man. All right. It's a lot of work and it's nasty, man. All right. It's real quick. Psalm 58. You know, it's over for these Edomites, man. Nothing else left. They need this war. That's the point. They needed to have this war. You know, Psalms 58:3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. All right. This man is a liar. All right. And everybody across the planet is talking about the files, and they've seen the footage. They've seen the photos. All right. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Iran had some stuff that they were supposedly going to reveal and all of that. So, like I said, they need to go ahead and do this thing, man. They don't have any other choice. All right, because everybody across the world is paying attention. They're seeing. They read the files. All the videos is going out. The content is going into the details and all of that. Man, it's over. What else can they do? All right, and it's spiritual how all of this stuff is happening this year. Okay, again, that 250 years. So this could be the year to bring all of this shit to an end. All right. Lord willing.
And he somehow knew I had flown in Jeffrey Epstein's aircraft. And he said, you know, we had some great times together over the years, but we fell out, all because of a real estate deal. And he said, I'm sorry it happened. That's all.
Today, MS Now's Alex Tabbitt found that voters in North Carolina who will be voting in primary elections tomorrow have not forgotten about the Epstein files.
What do you think President Trump is trying to distract from?
The Epstein files. The Epstein files. I'm not quite sure, to be honest, but I think the Epstein files are absolutely a big part of it in all of what we are seeing.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. He is co-sponsor with Congressman Thomas Massie of a resolution that would limit Donald Trump's ability to wage war in Iran without congressional approval. First of all, Congressman Khanna, let's go to the situation in Iran. What are you and Congressman Massie going to be able to accomplish in the House?
Lawrence, the vote is on Thursday. We're hoping to get a majority to say stop the war in Iran. Remember that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ran as the peace candidates. They said that Vice President Harris was going to get us into a war in Iran and cause World War III. Never in the modern history of this country has someone lied as blatantly and won office on such a false pretense. The American people don't want people dying for a war in the Middle East, and they don't want our billions of dollars going on bombs there instead of housing here, jobs here, childcare here. I believe we're going to have close to a unified Democratic caucus, and we have the chance of getting a few Republican votes.
So
Yeah. So like we said, he lied to the people. All right, he's supposed to be the peace president. All right, because remember, and one of the brothers had brought it out. I saw it on the feed. I think the title was "Remember What He Said Back This Time," and it was back in I forgot what year it was, but he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said that he was talking about how the prophets say that World War III was going to break out in the Middle East. All right, and he said that back then, and now look what's going on now. And he's part of that. He's part of the reason why this is happening. You know, he lied to everybody saying that he was going to cause peace, that was going to make a deal, and denuclearization, and it was going to bring peace. It was all bullshit. All right, and this is what the people are mad about. But anyway, Proverbs 21:1, it says the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh Shemir Washai, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. All right, so it's the Lord that's operating this program, man. All right, Yahweh Shemir Washai is a man of war, and he's using Trump to get it done. All right, we've been saying this for the longest since he got back in office on his second term, that he was going to be the guy that was going to bring the end of this world, man. And he's doing just that. All right.
Donald Trump's given a bunch of reasons about why he did this. He didn't mention Jeffrey Epstein as one of the reasons why he has done this, but clearly that's one of his hopes, is that he will divert our attention from this. Congressman Massey has promised that will not work.
It will not work, and he realizes that with President Clinton testifying, the pressure is mounting for him to testify. That's why he didn't want the Clintons to testify. And by the way, Secretary Clinton was so restrained. I mean, she should never have been called. She never met Jeffrey Epstein. You know who did meet Epstein and was all over the files? Donald Trump. And
Melania Trump.
And both of them need to be called to be asked basic questions.
All them niggas was with Epstein, man. All of them. All right, and they can't get away from it.
Questions. Why is it that he had a falling out? Because President Clinton's account of why Donald Trump had a falling out with Jeffrey Epstein is very different than the account that Donald Trump has been giving. Why are those files missing of the woman who accused him of rape when she was a minor? Again, an accusation, but why is it that 3 of those witness interviews are missing? And with the First Lady, we'll be respectful, but she has to answer some basic questions, because unlike First Lady Clinton, Secretary Clinton, she actually knew Epstein. What was her relationship? Did she know about Epstein's abuse?
Well, Donald Trump says, at least he told the police chief in Florida, that everyone knew. When he discovered that they were already investigating Epstein, Donald Trump then says everyone knew. Well, everyone would include his wife, Melania Trump.
It would include his wife, and it would include his cabinet member, Howard Lutnick, who years afterwards is out there doing business. But I think that it's very appropriate to ask the First Lady Trump, when did she know? Why did she continue to have an engagement with him? Did she know if there were other young girls who were being abused? And what was the relationship between her and President Trump and Epstein? I mean, we need to know these details, just as a matter of fact.
I don't remember any other testimony where a witness has told the committee that we know about a conversation with Donald Trump about Jeffrey Epstein. Was Bill Clinton's testimony on that golf course point the first testimony like that?
Yes, to my knowledge, that was the first point. And his testimony contradicts what Donald Trump was saying. And by the way, President Clinton wasn't trying to get Donald Trump in trouble. He said, I don't know if he's done anything wrong, but this is what he told me. Well, it turns out that's not what he's telling the American people.
Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, so there you go, man. It's over. What more can we say? All right. We'll leave it right there, man. So that's pretty much it, man. All right. Prophecy speaking, end times intensifying, the prophetic shift. you can't ignore, man. All right, it's going down. The signs are there. The tokens are there. The Lord is speaking, man. Shalom.